Okay, let's try this Venn diagram. So this one has some different looking premises. We have a sum premise, and actually we have a sum conclusion, so that's interesting. So we've got three terms. Bankers, let me get my pen here. Bankers, vegetarians, and anarchists. Oop. So let's go bankers, vegetarians, and anarchists. So what's our first premise? Some bankers are vegetarians. So what we're saying is, here's the set of all things in the world that are bankers. Okay? Here's the set of all things in the world that are vegetarians. And what we're saying is that this area here, in between bankers and vegetarians, we're saying that that space is not empty. We're saying that there's something in there. Okay? And however, we need to be neutral about its relationship to anarchists or anarchism or whatever. So what we want to do is make sure with a sum premise, we always put an X in the space, but we have to be kind of neutral about where it is specifically, whether it's in the A zone or what. Okay. So that's sum BRV. Check. No anarchists are bankers. Oh dear. Okay. So what that's going to do is say, see the space between the anarchists and the bankers? That space is empty. We're saying it is not allowed to have anything in it. That's what that premise says. So basically we shade that out. But what happens to that X that we put on that line? Well, the way I like to think about it is it kind of gets pushed or poked into this zone. Okay, if I could make a little arrow here. It gets pushed off of that line into the VB area. And so now it has no relation to A whatsoever, but we had to be neutral about it before we mapped the second premise. So we mapped the second premise. Some anarchists are not vegetarians. That's our conclusion. So we don't graph the conclusion, but on the basis of the first two premises and their combination, my view would be that, this conclusion is kind of weird because it's not actually related to the two premises combined don't actually tell us anything about the relationship between anarchists and vegetarians necessarily. But let's do something that we should never do, which is graph the conclusion, just to show you what this would look like. Some anarchists are not vegetarians. That would mean putting something here. Okay. But I wanted to just get rid of that really fast because we should never graph the conclusion. But what we do to check for validity is say, is the conclusion represented? And here, the conclusion is not represented. So that means that both premises are true, but the conclusion can be false, which means that this is not a valid argument.